Surah Yusuf. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. A brief background to this surah before we actually begin with this surah. Now, this is perhaps the only surah in the Quran which is dedicated to just one story. The entire surah is based on the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, and the surah is also called Surah Yusuf. So it is named after the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. The surah is named after the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. It is called Surah Yusuf, and it is perhaps the only surah in the Quran which details, in uh, which covers only one story. The entire surah itself is basically the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. So this is something unique to this surah. So let's proceed with the surah. Alif Lam Ra. These are the verses of the perspicuous book. We have sent it down as an Arabic Quran in order that you may learn wisdom. Now, what is the meaning of this verse, that we have sent it down as an Arabic Quran in order that you may learn wisdom? So the first addressees of the Quran were the Arabs whose mother tongue was Arabic. And hence it is being addressed to them that this book, the Quran, is sent as an Arabic Quran, in Arabic, so that you may learn wisdom. So it's in your language, so why don't you understand it and get the wisdom from it? Get the wisdom and also the guidance from it. And moreover, about the Arabic language, it is a living language, unlike some of the other languages in which the other scriptures are revealed. For example, Hebrew, Aramaic, etc. Those are not living languages, those are dead languages. So much so that it's not just a living language. Arabic is not just a living language, it is the fourth most widely spoken language in the world. The fourth most widely spoken language in the world. So it's a very important language in terms of the number of people speaking this language. So the first comes Mandarin. Many people think it's Chinese. Basically, the Chinese people, there is no language called Chinese, just as there is no language called Indian. So the Chinese people, they mainly speak the Mandarin language, and there are a few other languages. It may be similar, but there are differences. It's a separate language. So there is Cantonese and there are other languages. So the main language of the Chinese people is Mandarin. Sometimes this Mandarin is referred to as Chinese. So this is the most widely spoken language simply because of the population of China. And the second most widely spoken language is the English. It's the English language. It's English. The third most widely spoken language is Spanish, and the fourth most widely spoken language is Arabic. So it's spoken in huge numbers, basically, across the globe. So it's more than any of the Indian languages. There are several Indian languages which are very popular. In terms of the number of people speaking it across the globe, they rank very high in that top few lists, in the list of the most widely spoken languages. But then Arabic comes at fourth. Even there are some other languages such as Portuguese, which is also widely spoken. But when we get the statistics that Arabic is the fourth most widely spoken language, it's something remarkable. And so this is another point. It's a living language and it's a very widely spoken language. We do relate unto thee the most beautiful of stories, in that we reveal to thee this portion of the Quran. Before this, thou too was among those who knew it not. Behold, Yusuf alayhi salam, said to his father was Yaqub alayhi salam, Jacob, Yaqub alayhi salam, O my father, I did see 11 stars, and the sun and the moon, I saw them prostrate themselves to me. So this is a vision, this is a dream which Yusuf alayhi salam saw, and he narrated it to his father Yaqub alayhi salam. Okay, about Yusuf alayhi salam, let me also tell you by way of a reference that he is the only prophet who is a fourth generation prophet. I mean, he's the only example in which four consecutive generations are all prophets. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ishaq alayhi salam, Yaqub alayhi salam, and Yusuf alayhi salam. There is no other chain in history in which four consecutive generations are prophets. So this is also something special and unique to Yusuf alayhi salam. So this is a vision he had seen, and then he narrated to his father. Said the father, now Yaqub alayhi salam, because he was also a prophet and he was a man of wisdom. So he said, because there are mentioned certain stories about Yaqub alayhi salam, how he advised his sons, his children, and his family on his deathbed. So he was a man of wisdom. Said the father, my dear little son, relate not thy vision to thy brothers, lest they concoct a plot against thee. For Satan is to man an avowed enemy. Inna shaytana lil insani aduwwun mubin. A verse similar to this verse was also found in Surah Araf in connection with the story of Adam alayhi salam and Iblis. And there we had highlighted this verse. Inna shaytana lil insani aduwwun mubin. Indeed, the Satan is for all of mankind, insani aduwwun mubin, an enemy who is open, clear, the greatest enemy of mankind, so to say. So his father advised him not to narrate this story to his brothers. And Yusuf alayhi salam, there were 12 sons of Yaqub alayhi salam, so from which sprang the 12 tribes. And so when Musa alayhi salam determined the 12 springs from which each tribe could drink its water, which we had narrated in the last few surahs, in one of the surahs already. So these 12 tribes are basically from the progeny of each of these 12 sons. So Yusuf alayhi salam was the 11th son. There were sisters also, but there were 12 sons. And Yusuf alayhi salam was the 11th son, and only one of his brothers were younger to him, who was called Bunyamin, otherwise referred to also as Benjamin in the English language. Thus will thy Lord choose thee and teach thee the interpretation of stories and events, and perfect his favor to thee and to the posterity of Jacob, even as he perfected it to thy fathers Abraham and Isaac aforetime. For thy Lord is full of knowledge and wisdom. So these are very important verses, profound in its meaning. So Yaqub alayhi salam, he realized that his son Yusuf alayhi salam is special in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen him, and he predicted, he estimated, he understood that he would be chosen later on in life as a prophet, and Allah would also teach him the interpretation of stories, the interpretation of visions. And we later come to know that Yusuf alayhi salam was blessed with the interpretation of dreams and visions. So Allah will perfect his favor to thee. So this is the favor could refer to prophethood, it could also refer to the special blessing and the faculty of interpretation of stories, and otherwise as well. And Yusuf alayhi salam, and there were other aspects of Yusuf alayhi salam which were unique to him. For example, it is said that he was the most handsome among all the prophets. And so a lot of blessings was upon Yusuf alayhi salam. Also the fact that itself that he was the only fourth generation prophet in which all father-son generations were prophets. So these and other blessings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had bestowed upon him, and Yaqub alayhi salam had sort of understood this or predicted this from what was happening to Yusuf alayhi salam when he narrated his vision to his father. And he informed Yusuf alayhi salam, the young Yusuf, that Allah would grant his favor to him as he had and to the posterity of Jacob. So after Yaqub alayhi salam, he understood that Yusuf was to become a prophet, and even as he perfected it to thy fathers Abraham and Isaac. So this gives the chain, complete chain. Verily in Joseph and his brethren are signs for seekers after truth. They said, truly Joseph and his brother are loved more by our father than we, but we are a goodly body. Rather, our father is obviously in error. Joseph and his brother, the brother referred to over here is Bunyamin. Bunyamin, also referred to as Benjamin. So the other brothers were basically the other 10 brothers who made this statement. Slay ye Joseph or cast him out to some unknown land, that so the favor of your father may be given to you alone. There will be time enough for you to be righteous after that. So look at this statement. So first commit this crime, and later you can be righteous after that. Said one of them, slay not Joseph, but if you must do something, throw him down to the bottom of the well. He will be picked up by some caravan of travelers. So one of those 10 brothers had some sort of humanity in him. And he said, don't slay Yusuf, don't kill Yusuf. Rather, if you want to do something, if you intend harm to him, then throw him in a well. And so if a caravan were to pass by that, then he would be picked up, and so he'd survive. They said, O our father, why dost thou not trust us with Joseph, seeing we are indeed his sincere well-wishers? So this is the manner in which people speak today, and the intention with which they speak is exactly the intention with which his brothers, Yusuf alayhi salam's brothers, were speaking. So people speak contrary to. So this statement that verily in Joseph and his brethren are signs for seekers after truth. So these are some of the signs. Why is this story about Yusuf alayhi salam, which had happened some thousands of years ago? Ibrahim alayhi salam was about 4,000 years back. So why is the story even narrated in the Quran? So obviously it will be beneficial for those who will be reading the Quran. That is, after the time of the Prophet ﷺ, this story has profound wisdom in it. So this is also a wisdom. The way which people will adopt. So whatever they say, you cannot at all trust. If they say we are trustworthy, that means you have to assume that they are not trustworthy. That is why they'll make a huge hue and cry that, okay, we are trustworthy, why don't you believe us? And you can look at all around you what's happening in the world today. Send him with us tomorrow to enjoy himself and play, and we shall take every care of him. Jacob said, really, it saddens me that he should take him away. I fear lest the wolf should devour him, while he attend not to him. Now, Yaqub alayhi salam, he sort of estimated that these people, his sons, his other sons, were intending to do some harm. So how could he just address them like that? No, I think you are going to harm him. So he tried to camouflage it, his concerns, by saying, I think, but if you are inattentive for a while, the wolf may devour him. Now, picking up clues from this, the sons did exactly fabricate the story in these lines. They said, if the wolf were to devour him while we are so large a party, there were 10 of them, then should we be the losers? So they did take him away, and they all agreed to throw him down to the bottom of the well. And we put into his heart this message of a surety, thou shalt one day tell them the truth of this their affair while they perceived not. And this happened later on. And obviously Yaqub alayhi salam did allow them to take Joseph, because he also had this feeling, he had this understanding that Yusuf alayhi salam, Yusuf, his son Yusuf, the little Yusuf, would be protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what a way he puts his trust in Allah. Then they came to their father in the early part of the night weeping. They said, O our father, we went racing with one another and left Joseph without things, and the wolf devoured him. So they picked the cues basically, and fabricated the story in the same lines. How foolish they can be. But thou wilt never believe us even though we tell the truth. So this is the way people speak today, don't they? But thou wilt never believe us even though we tell the truth. And they know they are telling a lie, and even Yaqub alayhi salam realized that they are telling a lie. He estimated they are telling a lie. He perceived that they are telling a lie. They stained his shirt with false blood. And look at the foolishness of these brothers. And even today, the people They leave such idiotic marks. Let me just read through this verse and I'll come back to a point that I want to make. They stained his shirt with false blood. He said, "Nay, but your minds have made up a tale that may pass with you. For me, patience is most fitting against that which ye assert. It is Allah alone whose help can be sought." So, Yaqub alayhi salam would not buy this story. He understood very well that they are making it up. Uh, the blood, I mean, the shirt contained blood. I mean, the shirt survived and Yusuf alayhi salam did not survive. Okay, what I wanted to inform you is that let me just take you back to some 14 years. 14 years back, let's go back some 14 years back, 2001. What it reminded of September 11, 9/11. What happened? Everything was burned down, everything was demolished, and apparently a passport, a piece of paper managed to survive, which led them to clues, to get cues about the hijackers. Isn't it remarkable? Just once again reflect on this verse number 7. Verily in Joseph and his brethren are signs for seekers after truth. There are signs from this story. Not for nothing this story is being narrated. There's a profound wisdom. This is an amazing, this is one story that it should take up the entire chapter. Isn't it something amazing? So the 9/11. What happened in the recent Charlie Hebdo case? Again, they left the hardcore criminals. They left evidence so that they might be traced. So Charlie Hebdo, obviously, it's much less in significance, but it's also very significant. All these are false flag attacks. So Charlie Hebdo, and then the 9/11 was what I refer to 9/11 as. There are three types of lies. One which are small lies, one which are big lies, and then the highest category is 9/11. So that's what it is. It's meant to be on a light note, but the consequences nevertheless are very grave. So Yaqub alayhi salam would not take any of this story. So he said that only Allah's help can be sought. So he understood that Allah would protect Yusuf alayhi salam. He realized somehow that Yusuf was to become, the little Yusuf was to become a prophet later on in life. Then there came a caravan of travelers. They sent their water carrier for water and let down his bucket into the well. He said, "They're good news. Here is a fine young man." So they concealed him as a treasure, but Allah knoweth well all that they do. The brethren sold him for a miserable price, for a few measly dirhams. For a few measly dirhams. The word used is darahima, the plural of dirham. A few measly dirhams. Dirhams. So dirham is mentioned in the Quran. So let's relate economics to this story as well. So dirham is mentioned in the Quran, just as dinar was mentioned in Surah Imran and in other places in the Quran as well as in the Hadith. So dirham, the same with dirham. So dirham is mentioned in the Quran. This is the money that is supposed to be used, gold and silver coins with specific weights. So for a few measly dirhams, counted out, in such low estimation did they hold him. The man in Egypt who bought him said to his wife, "Make his stay among us honorable. Maybe he will bring us much good, or we shall adopt him as a son." Thus did we establish Joseph in the land, that we might teach him the interpretation of stories and events. And Allah had full power and control over his affairs, but most among mankind know it not. When Joseph attained his full manhood, we gave him power and knowledge. Thus, we not only gave him knowledge, but we also gave him power. So sometimes power is essential. There is an interesting point we'd make. Let's proceed with a few more verses and then I'll make the point. So just remember for now that what is mentioned over here in this verse number 22, is we gave him power and knowledge. Thus do we reward those who do right. Let's explain it now itself, and then when we come across more verses, we'll again repeat some of the explanations, so that repetition can be beneficial, isn't it? It's mentioned in the Quran as well. Repetition is sometimes really beneficial. I think it's in Surah Zariyat, chapter number 51. perhaps in verse number 55, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm not getting it wrong, if my memory is not failing, it's perhaps verse number 55 of Surah Zariyat. So this is it. See, if you have knowledge, but if you don't have power and authority, you can't implement changes in the land. And if you have power and authority but no knowledge, you will create an anarchy in the society. If you have no knowledge and no power, I mean, it's pretty useless, a combination. And if you have power and knowledge, you will be able to issue laws which are good for the society. So sometimes this combination is so very important, power and knowledge. Only when these two traits come together can you be beneficial to the society in its implementation level. But she in whose house he was sought to seduce him, and she fastened the doors and said, "Now come." He said, "Allah forbid, truly thy husband is my Lord. He made my sojourn agreeable. Truly to no good come those who do wrong." So this was the wife of the person who purchased Yuwsuf alayhi salam, who is trying to seduce Yuwsuf alayhi salam, now that he had grown up to be a man. So Yuwsuf alayhi salam this is what he's saying, truly no good come those who do wrong. Now look at the situation today. I mean, if something were to this effect were to happen, what would some of us do? I mean, these are very difficult situations. So look at the strength of belief Yuwsuf alayhi salam had. And this is also an indication to the degradation of the society we have today. So because again, go back to verse number 7. Verily in Joseph and his brethren are signs for seekers after truth. So basically all the sorts of corruptions that are prevalent in the society today, and how those corruptions potentially were active in those times, but how Yuwsuf alayhi salam averted those, what he did, how he kept to himself, how he had consciousness of Allah throughout with him, how his strength of belief saved him. All these are things, and all these are important points that we should remind ourselves, and not just remind ourselves, absorb it and follow it. And with passion did she desire him, and he would have desired and he would have desired her, but that he saw the evidence of his Lord. Now this is a very difficult passage. The previous verse itself clarifies that Yuwsuf alayhi salam had absolute self-control, and had no intention of any wrongdoing whatsoever. No wrongdoing whatsoever, no intention of any wrongdoing whatsoever he had in his mind. But then if this situation were to come, it's a very difficult scenario that is being described. So, and with passion did she desire him, and he would have desired her. And what happens? These are human faculties, these are human tendencies that is being described. Nothing very odd, nothing very difficult to understand. Just reflect for a while. Things will be so clear to you. It's very clear to you already. He would have desired it, but that he saw the evidence of his Lord. Now, what is the exact meaning, but that he saw the evidence of his Lord, is actually something very difficult. Some scholars have suggested that when his human, in fact, he's human, so he'll have his human, when his human nature was being manipulated, when she was trying to manipulate his human nature, he saw the face of Yaqub alayhi salam on one of the walls, and who signaled to him, no. So you have not done anything wrong, and try to just resist yourself and exert your self-control. So this is one of the things that has been suggested and seems very logical to me. Thus did we order that we might turn away from him all evil and indecent deeds. for he was one of our servants chosen. So remember, Yaqub al-Islam, he had this feeling that Yusuf would grow up to be a prophet. He was not a prophet as yet, but a prophet would have to be protected. And obviously a prophet, a potential prophet, has a lot of self-control, and he was trying his best to exert that control. But then when such things happen, it sometimes becomes very difficult, and so a reminder helps. And so this was one of the evidence of his Lord, which some scholars have suggested, that his father's image appeared on one of the walls, and he signaled to him no, and he again sort of collected himself back, his thoughts, and became firm. So they both raced each other to the door, and she tore his shirt from the back. They both found her lord near the door. She said, "What is the fitting punishment for one who formed an evil design against thy wife?" Now look at this allegation. A false, completely false and baseless allegation, but prison for or a grievous chastisement. He said, "It was she that sought to seduce me from my true self, and one of our household saw this and bore witness. Thus, if it be that his shirt is rent." So one of the attendants, probably a maid, possibly a maid or a female servant, saw this event, or interpreted this event, or gave a possible suggestion what could be the correct narration, because now there were two narratives. One, the wife of the person who was basically serving as the lord of Yusuf alayhi salam, because he had purchased him as a slave, and one was the statement of the wife, and one was the statement of Yusuf alayhi salam. Okay, so this lady, apparently she was very witty, and she composed her thoughts and wisdom, and she said, and so she said, "And one of her household saw this and bore witness thus, if it be that his shirt is rent from the front, then is her tale true, and he is a liar. But if it be that his shirt is torn from the back, then is she the liar, and he is telling the truth." So what a wonderful way to detect who is speaking. So these are some of the thoughts, these are some of the points that we need to have in this age to determine who is speaking the truth and who is speaking the falsehood. Let us again go back to 9/11. Who is speaking the truth, who is speaking the falsehood? In fact, among the 19 or so hijackers, alleged hijackers for the 9/11 event, one of them, and apparently they were all dead, isn't it? One of them woke up in the next morning to read in the newspaper that he was apparently dead. So who is lying? Who is speaking the truth? Is the government? Which version is the correct version? So these are some of the evidences that we need to assess and analyze before just accepting one view or the other. So these are some of the wisdom and profound wisdom that has to be applied in this age, so that you may have a chance to save yourself. Again, imagine, it seems for a very brief moment that feeling was coming in the mind of Yusuf alayhi salam. I mean, we are not trying to suggest, it's very clear in verse number 23. We are going back a few verses to just establish a point, that verse 23 clarifies very clearly that he had no intention of any evil whatsoever from his side. But verse number 24, maybe for a momentary lapse, when the thoughts were becoming stronger in him, I mean, think of the situation and think of what would a normal person do. He may be ripping off the shirt himself. So this is what he is saying. So Yusuf alayhi salam was shown the evidence of his Lord, which we have explained. One of the possible interpretations which I agree with, and so he ran away from that wrongdoing, and so the wife tore the shirt from behind, and so things were clear as to who was speaking the truth and who was speaking the falsehood. So when he saw his shirt that it was torn at the back. Esau means the Lord. Her husband said, "Behold, it is a snare of you women. Truly, mighty is your snare. O Joseph, pass this over. O wife, ask forgiveness for thy sin, for truly thou hast been at fault." Ladies said in the city, "The wife of the great Aziz." So this Aziz, he was not the head of the state, so to say, but he was the minister to the head of the state, sort of the minister to the head of the state, the important minister, perhaps the most important minister of the head of the state of that region. So ladies said in the city, "The wife of the great Aziz is seeking to seduce her slave. Truly hath he inspired her with violent love. We see she is evidently going astray." So now this has become something of a gossip in the entire town, now that the news has spread. When she heard of their malicious talk, which was correct, she sent for them and prepared a banquet for them. And she gave each of them a knife. And she said to Joseph, "Come out before them." When they saw him, they did extol him, and in their amazement cut their hands. They said, "Allah preserve us. No mortal is this. This is none other than a noble angel." So, why did she even think of committing such an act? The wife of Aziz was trying to prove her point that Yusuf alayhi salam, which we had stated towards the beginning of this chapter, that he was the most handsome among all the prophets, most handsome amongst all men. This is what is said usually or generally, and we don't have any objection to that. So they invited all the ladies who were just spreading this gossip, and so she gave them, all of them, a knife with which to cut certain things, and all of them cut their hands. Now stories have been made up that they had cut off their thumbs totally, or the others say that this is just a cut mark. So that's totally irrelevant. That's totally besides the point. Perhaps it was just a cut in the hand, not severing the thumb totally. But they felt no pain in that moment. They felt no pain. Later they realized that they had cut their thumbs, or they had cut their fingers. Maybe a cut or complete cut off. We are not interested in those details. Neither is it mentioned in the Quran, nor is it important at all. So this is no mortal angel. They were so amazed with the beauty, the handsomeness of Yusuf alayhi salam, and they remarked, "This is a noble angel." She said, "Therefore, before you is the man about whom ye did blame me. I did seek to seduce him from his true self, but he did firmly save himself guiltless." So the general perception of Yusuf alayhi salam is once again made very clear, that he had absolutely no intention of any wrongdoing, but maybe for a brief temporary moment of time. And won't get me wrong, this is the interpretation that we get from verse number 24. Don't say that we are maligning Yusuf alayhi salam. That's not what we're doing. If you read verse number 24, there is an indication to the effect, and we're just stating what the verses are flowing. So overall, Yusuf alayhi salam exerted tremendous self-control, and that's the point basically we are seeing again and again. She said, so our perspective is very clear, and we have repeated this again and again, that Yusuf alayhi salam was the one who had no intention of any wrongdoing, and he had complete self-control with himself. She said, "Therefore before you is the man about whom ye did blame me. I did seek to seduce him from his true self, but he did firmly save himself guiltless. And now if he doth not my bidding, he shall certainly be cast into prison, and what is more, be of the company of the vilest." He said, "O my lord, the prison is dearer to my liking than that which they invite me. Unless thou turn away their snare from me, I should feel inclined towards them and join the ranks of the ignorant." So this is what I was referring to, which is clear from the verse number 24. So if you have the situation, there are bound to be momentary lapses, because you're human beings, because you're not an angel, you're a human being. We are human beings. But how he had so much self-control that he said that even prison is more dear to me than that which they invite to. I should feel inclined towards them. I mean, unless thou turn away their snare from me, I should feel inclined towards them and join the ranks of the ignorant. So he had no intention of any wrongdoing. So his Lord hearkened to him in his prayer and turned away from him their snare. Verily, he heareth, knoweth all things. Then it occurred to them, after they had seen the signs, that it was best to imprison him for a time. Now, with him there came into the prison 2 young men. Said one of them, I see myself in a dream pressing wine. Said the other, I see myself in a dream carrying bread on my head, and birds are eating thereof. Tell us, they said, the truth and meaning thereof, and we see thou art one that doth good to all. He said, before any food comes in due course to feed either of you, I will surely reveal to you the truth and meaning of this ere it befall you. That is part of the duty which my Lord hath taught me. I have, I assure you, abandoned the ways of a people that believe not in Allah, and that even deny the hereafter. So by this time, Yusuf alayhi salam had already been blessed with the interpretation of dreams, and so he proceeds to explain the dreams, the true dreams the two other prisoners narrated to him. And I follow the ways of my fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and never could we attribute any partners whatever to Allah. That comes of the grace of Allah to us and to mankind. Yet most men are not grateful. O my 2 companions of the prison, I ask you, are many lords differing among themselves better, or Allah the one supreme and irresistible? Whatever you worship apart from him is nothing but names which you have named, ye and your fathers, for which Allah hath sent down no authority. The command is for none but Allah. He hath commanded that you worship none but him. That is the right religion, but most men understand not. Of my 2 companions, O my 2 companions of the prison, as to the one of you he will pour out the wine for his Lord to drink. As for the other he will hang from cross, and the birds will eat of his head. So hath been decreed the matter whereof ye twain do inquire. And of the two, to that one whom he considered about to be saved, he said, mention me to thy Lord. But Satan made him forget to mention him to his Lord, and Joseph lingered in prison a few more years. The king of Egypt. Now, this is the king who is different from the minister who was Aziz. The king of Egypt said, I do see in a vision 7 fat kine, whom 7 lean ones devour, and 7 green ears of corn, and 7 others withered. O ye chiefs, expound to me my vision, if it be that ye can interpret visions. They said, a confused medley of dreams, and we are not skilled in the interpretation of dreams. But the man who had been released, one of the 2 who had been in prison, and who now remembered him after so long a space of time, said, I will tell you the truth of its interpretation. Send me therefore. O Joseph, he said, O man of truth, expound to us the dream of 7 fat kine, whom 7 lean ones devour, and of 7 green ears of corn, and 7 others withered, that I may return to the people, and that they may know. Joseph said, for 7 years shall ye diligently sow, as is your wont, and the harvest that ye reap, ye shall leave them in the year, except a little, of which ye shall eat. Then will come after that period 7 dreadful years, which will devour that what ye shall have laid by in advance for them, all except a little which ye shall have specially guarded. Then will come after that a period, a year in which the people have abundant water, and in which they will press wine and oil. So the king said, bring him unto me. But when the messenger came to him, Joseph said, go thou back to my lord, and ask him what was the matter with the ladies who cut their hands, for my lord is certainly well aware of their snare. So now when so after a long time had passed, so Yusuf alayhi salam had no idea what happened to those ladies and what happened thereafter with them. So he just inquired what happened to the ladies. The king said to the ladies, "What was your affair when he did seek to seduce Joseph?" Basically, he brought up this point to establish, or so to let the king know, basically he was in the house of the minister, not the king. So to let the king know basically that he was in the prison for no fault of his. So this had to be made known to the king. It was only right that the truth be known. The king said to the ladies, "What was your affair when you did seek to seduce Joseph?" The ladies said, "Allah preserve us. No evil know we against him," said the Aziz's wife. "Now is the truth manifest to all. It was I who sought to seduce him. He is indeed of those who are ever true and virtuous." Okay. A lot of stories have been fabricated about the wife of Aziz later on as to what happened to her. Did she become a Muslim? Did she become righteous? And a lot of stories. There have been names suggested for her. For example, Zuleika. And a lot of stories have been fabricated, Yusuf and Zuleika, and they have made a love story out of nothing. I mean, these are stories. The Quran does not speak about that. Neither is it very important for us. It's something irrelevant to the entire story, basically. But we'll touch upon some of the points after we have completed the chapter, not now. So, based on this verse, that is one of the interpretation that can be derived from this verse. This is verse number 51. Now is the truth manifest to all. Now, why did she say this? Was it because that she had become sort of righteous, or she had sought forgiveness from Allah, or was it because now there was no chance for her to hide her case anymore? It's open, and the king, it has come to the court of the king, and the king has come to know of this, and so she thought maybe it's better to accept the truth or make the correct narrative open to everyone. It was I who sought to seduce him. He is indeed of those who are ever true and virtuous. Or is it because by this he wanted to influence Yusuf alayhi salam now in a different way? Things are not clear to us, neither do we intend to go too deep into that story. This say I in order that he may know that I have never been false to him in his absence. Now there are other interesting points that are coming up. Now is the wife of Aziz says that I have never been attracted to any other man besides Yusuf, and have never been false to him in his absence. These are very difficult things to discuss, so just take it as it is, and that Allah will never guide the snare of the false ones. So this is the basis from which the stories that have been made up from verses 51 and 52. Let's proceed with verse number 53 onwards. Yet I do not absolve myself of blame. The human soul certainly incites evil. So again, this is a continuation of the same feelings that she is describing now, having accepted her sin, her fault. Yet I do not absolve myself of blame. The human soul certainly incites evil, unless my Lord do bestow his mercy. But surely my Lord is oft forgiving, most merciful. So the king said, "Bring him unto me. I will take him specially to serve me about my own person." Therefore, when he had spoken to him, he said, "Be assured, this day thou art of high standing with us, invested with all trust." When the status of Yusuf alayhi salam was clear to the king, this is what the king said, and look at what Yusuf alayhi salam will now say. This is in verse number 51. Joseph said, "Set me over the storehouses of the land. I am a good keeper, knowledgeable." Remember that the two attributes which make for a good leader, both power and knowledge. With knowledge, just with knowledge, you can't do anything. You can't implement any changes. If you have a power as well, the necessary authority as well as knowledge, only then you can serve with a purpose, serve in a way that is beneficial to the society. So he wanted to have be restored, be instated, be appointed basically as a over Khazain al-Ardh, the treasures of the earth. And what are the treasures of the earth? Basically, In today's terminology, we would call him the finance minister. He wanted the post of finance minister for himself. So when the king wanted to give him something, offer him something, he chose and he requested that he should give him the position of finance minister, so to say, in today's terminology. Now, anyone who, this is again economics, a lot of things, the economic turmoil and the financial turmoil that you see witness in the modern age, in today's age, it's because of a lot of corruption that is there. And if you are to restore the economic and the financial balance, a lot of wisdom has to be taken out of this surah. And there is another point which I want to state at this point. Yeah, that's perfectly fine in Islam that you should not desire a post, a position. That's a general perception, just a general idea, and that's more or less correct to its own point, in its own way. But then sometimes you need to demand a post or a position in order to be able to serve society. Otherwise, you will not have the authority. So Yuwsuf alayhi salam, he was knowledgeable and he realized that the difficult times are coming ahead of them. So 7 years they need to have excellent management of the resources, so that in the next 7 years, when there is a drought, when there is famine, when there is a scarcity of resources, that reserved resources will then be utilized. So he has to do an excellent job as a finance minister, and he demanded basically sort of the position of the finance minister for himself, because he knew that he was knowledgeable as well as honest, and so he would be the most appropriate finance minister. Others may not have that knowledge, may not have that expertise. So in certain situations, if you have the knowledge, it is not always wrong if you demand a position of authority, a post of authority. Sometimes we say casually that, look, what a person, it's not a good, he's not a good, it does not seem to us that he's a good person, he's demanding this post and he's demanding this position. Your allegation may be correct for most of the people, because most of the people are like that. They are not trustworthy, they are not worth the post or the position. And this happens because the people who are knowledgeable and trustworthy and who deserve the powers, deserve the positions and the powers and the posts, they do not make a case for themselves. This is a lesson which is very important, especially in the last age, in Akhirul Zaman, when there will be an absolute mismanagement of the resources, and a good finance minister is the only solution to not just the economic and the financial problems of the world, but to all the general problems of the world. So this is something, if we keep in mind, we will not always be wanting to point a finger at others when we see someone who is knowledgeable, who is actually demanding a position of authority, a post. But then these are difficult things, because most of the people are so corrupted that they will demand and they will essentially have no knowledge. So this is something, this is an observation, and I hope this observation will benefit your understanding. Thus did we give established power to Joseph in the land, to take possession therein as, when, of, or where he pleased. We bestow of our mercy on whom we please, and we suffer not to be lost the reward of those who do good. But verily, the reward of the hereafter is the best for those who believe and are constant in righteousness. Then came Joseph's brethren, they entered his presence, and he knew them, but they knew him not. Obviously, he would know them because they were already grown up by that time when he was a small child. But now that he has grown up, it's difficult for them to recognize him. This is so obvious. Okay. Then came Joseph's brethren, they entered his presence, and he knew them, but they knew him not. Now, why did they come? It seems that the first 7 years had passed, and the next 7 years, there was this scarcity of resources, not just in Egypt, but in and around the surrounding areas as well. And the entire region, greater region, was being affected more and more with each passing year. So the neighboring regions, the neighboring areas, they heard that there is such a king who is very charitable, very benevolent, and he distributes from his treasury of resources of grains. So naturally, many people were coming to visit that, and they had no idea that even his brothers came along as one of the parties, or the many parties that were coming to them, and they had no idea that it was Joseph who was actually managing the resources on behalf of the king. So it is said, then came Joseph's brethren, they entered his presence, and he knew them, but they knew him not. And when he had furnished them forth with provisions suitable for them, he said, bring unto me a brother ye have, of the same father as yourself, but a different mother. Now, Yusuf alayhi salam and Benjamin, Bunyamin, they were from a different mother, and that is why I had to forgot to mention about this point. I could have mentioned at that time also that it is because of this they were sort of half brothers. Today we do not. I mean, okay, brothers, half brothers, and step brothers. What exactly is the definition, the English terminology? Brothers are from the same parents, father and mother, both are common. Half brothers would be, in today's terminology, it would be something like, what would be like? Okay, actually, half brothers and step brothers in today's terminology, it would be same. It would be the same father and two different mothers. And step brother can also be from a different scenario. But then English, it's very fuzzy. It's always not distinct. Step brother can also be from if a mother has a child from a previous marriage. So basically, and he marries a new man and again has child. So these two will be step brothers. So different fathers, but the same mother, but not at the same time, right? Not the same time. So that is it. So these two were different mothers. At that time, the division was somewhat different. Same father, whether it was from the same mother or the different mother, would be considered to be brothers. I mean, the concept of half brother as such was not there. And then there was a step brother that would refer to the same mother but different fathers, not at the same time, right? So that would be the concept at that time. In any case, so but a different mother, see ye not that I pay out full measure and that I provide the best hospitality? So he was inquiring of Yuwsuf. Yusuf alayhi salam was inquiring of their brothers about Yuwsuf. Because the brothers had no idea where Yuwsuf was. They thought, they had no clue basically. Either he has died in these years or he's somewhere. They have no clue. They, in the wildest of imaginations, could not have dreamed or thought that Yusuf alayhi salam, from a slave basically, would rise to the status of the finance minister, even the most trusted minister of the king. They had no idea. How could they have this idea? So very cleverly, Yusuf alayhi salam is inquiring from his brothers about Yuwsuf, about the young Yuwsuf, because he knew that he had survived, but they did not know. Now, if you bring him not to me, ye shall have no measure of corn from me, nor shall he even come near me. They said, we shall try to win him from his father. Indeed, we shall do it. And Joseph told his servants to put their stock in trade with which they had bartered into their saddlebags, so they should know it only when they returned to their people, in order they might come back. Now, when they returned to their father, they said, O our father, no more measure of grain shall we get unless we take a brother. So send our brother with us. Okay, sorry. I think I just missed a point. Yusuf alayhi salam was inquiring from his brothers, from his 10 brothers, about Benjamin, because Benjamin was still, about Bunyamin, because Bunyamin was still with them. So, not about Yusuf himself, sorry. Now, when they returned to their father, they said, "Oh, our father, no more measure of grain shall we get unless we take our brother." Yusuf alayhi salam gave the impression as if he did not know anything about Yusuf, and that maybe he had died. Young Yusuf had died, and so the brothers thought similarly. Okay, so now when they returned to their father, they said, "Oh, our father, no measure of grain shall we get unless we take our brother. So send our brother with us that we may get a measure, and we will indeed take every care of him." He said, "Shall I trust you with him with any result other than when I trusted you with his brother aforetime?" So Yaqub al-Islam is saddened with the remind when he remembers that how they had just dealt with Yusuf alayhi salam, and there is no news of Yusuf alayhi salam for a long, long time now. He said, "Shall I trust you with him with any result other than when I trusted you with his brother aforetime? But Allah is the best to take care of him, and He is the most merciful of those who show mercy." Then, when they opened their baggage, they found their stock in trade had been returned to them. They said, "O our father, what more can we desire? This our stock in trade has been returned to us, so we shall get more food for our family. We shall take care of our brother and add at the same time a full camel's load of grain to our provisions. This is but a small quantity." Jacob said, never will I send Benjamin with you unless ye swear a solemn oath to me in Allah's name, that ye will be sure to bring him back to me unless ye are yourselves hemmed in and made powerless. And when they had sworn their solemn oath, he said, "Over all that we say, be Allah the witness and guardian." Further, he said, "O my sons, enter not all by one gate, enter ye by different gates. Not that I can profit you aught against Allah with my advice. None can command except Allah. On him do I put my trust, and let all that trust put their trust on him." And when they entered in the manner their father had enjoined, it did not profit them in the least against the plan of Allah. It served only to satisfy Jacob's heartfelt desire, for he was by our instruction full of knowledge and experience, but most men know not. Now, when they came into Joseph's presence, and they had no idea that they were coming to Joseph's presence. Now, when they came into Joseph's presence, he received his full brother to stay with him. He said to him, now full brother, full is in brackets. This is the understanding that I was talking about, that same father, even it's two different mothers, that was considered a full brother at that time. So the half brother and the step brother, this is sort of fuzzy these days. The terminology is different in Arabic, in English, in different cultures, and I had explained to you, I had tried to explain about that aspect a little earlier. Now when they came into Joseph's presence, he received his full brothers to stay with him. Sorry. To full brothers to stay with him this is Benjamin. So Joseph received his full brother, that is Benjamin, to stay with him. He said to him, "Behold, I am thy own brother, so grieve not at aught of their doings." At length, when he had Yusuf alayhi salam only informed Benjamin about his true identity, but did not reveal his identity to his other 10 brothers. At length, when he had furnished them forth with provisions suitable for them, he put the drinking cup into his brother's saddlebag, then shouted out a prayer, "O ye in the caravan, behold, ye are thieves, without doubt." They said, turning towards them, "What is it that ye miss?" They said, "We miss the great beaker of the king. For him who produces it is the reward of a camel load. I will be bound by it." The brother said, "By Allah, well ye know that we came not to make mischief in the land, but we are no thieves." The Egyptians said, "What then shall be the penalty of this if you are proved to have lied?" So this basically Yusuf alayhi salam deliberately put the beaker in Benjamin's bag so that he may be caught and kept back. And so the promise, they would break the promise, they would break the oath basically, when the other 10 brothers had promised to Yaqub alayhi salam that they would bring their brother Benjamin back safely. They said the penalty should be that he in whose saddlebag it is found should be held as bondman to atone for the crime. Thus it is we punish the wrongdoers. So began the search with the baggage before he came to the baggage of his brother. At length he brought it out of his brother's baggage. Thus did we plan for Joseph. So basically this plan was given to Yusuf alayhi salam from Allah. Thus did we plan for Joseph. He could not take his brother by the law of the king except that Allah willed it so. We raised to degrees of wisdom whom we please, but over all endued with knowledge is one, the all-knowing. Excellent part of the passage. Excellent part of the verse. وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ أَلِيمٍ. And above all is he who is the most knowledgeable. And above all is he who is the most knowledgeable. But over all endued with knowledge is one, the all-knowing. So this is what we should say in this age. But do we say this? This is the question. And you need not even answer me. You need to answer this question to yourself with honesty. Or do you say that we are the most knowledgeable? This can also be related to the story of Musa alayhi salam and Khidr alayhi salam, that how Musa alayhi salam also had a momentary lapse when he said that I am the most knowledgeable, or something similar, that there is no one who is as knowledgeable as me. So this is what we are being reminded. Even that story is a lesson for us, and even this story is a lesson for us. They said if he steals, there was a brother of his who did steal before him. But these things did Joseph keep locked in his heart. Now how these people are making up false stories. Now they are making up this story that if he did steal, that is Benjamin did steal, Bunyamin did steal, there was a brother of his who also stole before him, referring to Yusuf alayhi salam, trying to indicate that Yusuf alayhi salam was a thief, and they knew very well what they had done to Yusuf. But these things did Joseph keep locked in his heart. And with sadness he held back his thoughts and emotions in his heart. Revealing not the secrets to them, he simply said to himself, Ye are the worst situated, and Allah knoweth best the truth of what he assert. They said, O exalted one, behold, he has a father, aged and venerable, who will grieve for him. So take one of us in his place, for we see that thou art gracious in doing good. He said, Allah forbid that we take other than him with whom we found our property. Indeed, if he did so, we should be acting wrongfully. So this is absolute wisdom which is being just narrated. Now, when they saw no hope of his yielding, they held a conference in private. The leader among them said, Know ye not that your father did take an oath from you in Allah's name, and how before this ye did fail in your duty with Joseph? Therefore will I not leave this land until my father permits me, or Allah judges for me, and he is the best to judge. Turn ye back to your father and say, O father, behold, thy son committed theft. We bear witness only to what we know, and we could not well guard against the unseen. Ask at the town where we have been and the caravan in which we return, and you will find we are indeed telling the truth. Jacob said, Nay, but ye have yourselves contrived a story. So now they had come back, and this time Yaqub alayhi salam said, Again you are making up a story, just as you made up a story with the wolf devouring Yuwsuf. Jacob said, Nay, but ye have yourselves contrived a story, good enough for you. So patience is most fitting for me. Maybe Allah will bring them back all to me in the end. So Yaqub alayhi salam still had this belief that maybe one day Allah will bring all his sons back to him, for he is indeed full of knowledge and wisdom. And he turned away from them and said, How great is my grief for Joseph. So after all these years, his heart was still in grief for the loss of his son Yuwsuf, and his eyes became white with sorrow, and he was suppressed with silent sorrow. They said, By Allah, never will thou cease to remember Joseph until thou reach the last extremity of illness, or until thou die. He said, I only complain of my distraction and anguish to Allah, and I know from Allah that which ye know not. O my sons, go ye and inquire about Joseph and his brother. Never give up hope of Allah's soothing mercy. Truly, no one despairs of Allah's soothing mercy except those who have no faith. Then, when they came back into Joseph's presence, they said, O exalted one, distress. Now, they're referring to their brother as the exalted one, but they have no idea as yet that they're speaking to Joseph. O exalted one, distress has seized us and our family. We have now brought but scanty capital, so pay us full measure, we pray thee, and treat it as charity to us. For Allah doth reward the charitable. He said, Know ye how ye dealt with Joseph and his brother, not knowing what ye were doing? This is, art thou indeed Joseph? Now, after so many things that Yusuf alayhi salam was telling them, they had this feeling now. They sort of began to understand and suspect that this person might indeed be Joseph. So this, art thou indeed Joseph? He said, I am Joseph, and this is my brother. Allah has indeed been gracious to us all. Behold. And remember what Yusuf alayhi salam is stating. Allah has indeed been gracious to us all. And what has Yusuf alayhi salam had to endure? Years in prison, and he's not complaining. What he is saying is Allah has indeed been gracious to us all. And how do we react? How do we react whenever the little difficulty approaches us, happens to us? How do we react? We almost forget the name of Allah, and we, I don't know, you know better. I mean, we all know, don't we, how we react. So look at the reaction. This is the patience. This is the ultimate form of patience, the ultimate form of humility. Look at the words. These are so special words. They said, art thou indeed Joseph? He said, I am Joseph, and this is my brother. Allah has indeed been gracious to us all. After years of imprisonment, after years of slavery, and after the event which happened with him, with Aziz's wife and the ladies and all sorts of things that have happened with him, this is what he has to say. Take a lesson. I mean, this is for me as well, as much as for you all, perhaps more for me than for you all. Because this entire series was meant to be an exercise for me, just that it is being recorded so that some of my thoughts can reach you, and if it's beneficial to you, I appreciate Allah. I don't have anything more to say. This is what we all should say. This is the only thing that I can say now. I'm Joseph, and this is my brother. Allah has indeed been gracious to us all. I mean, those who shout the most, they're not the strongest. They're the weakest. Those who are able to bear with patience, with sabr, with perseverance, with constancy, it is they who are the strongest. Remember this. Perhaps it might act as a beneficial knowledge to us all. Indeed, Allah has indeed been gracious to us all. Behold, he that is righteous and patient, never will Allah suffer the reward to be lost of those who do right. They said, by Allah, indeed has Allah preferred thee above us, and we certainly have been guilty of sin. So now comes the acceptance. And by this time, it seems to me that Yusuf alayhi salam has already been chosen as a prophet. He said, this day let no reproach be cast on you. Allah will forgive you, and he is the most merciful of those who show mercy. Go with this shirt and cast toward the face of my father, and he will come to see clearly. And years of weeping has caused Yaqub alayhi salam to become blind, and this was another favor, another blessing which was given to Yusuf alayhi salam. And he said that if you cast this shirt of mine, this blood, was it the blood stained one or the other one? Go with this my shirt, maybe another shirt. I think perhaps another shirt. Go with this shirt, this my shirt, and cast it over the face of my father. He will come to see clearly. His blindness will be cured by Allah's grace. Then come ye here to me together with all your family, including Yaqub alayhi salam. When the caravan left Egypt, their father said, I do indeed send the presence of Joseph. Nay, think me not a dotard. They said, "By Allah, truly thou art in thine old wandering illusion." Then when the bearer of the good news came, he cast the shirt over his face, and he forthwith regained clear sight. So when the caravan just had left Egypt, at that time itself, Yaqub al-Islam commented, I think the caravan had left. I mean, uh, I think of the 10 brothers, the 9 brothers were with Yaqub al-Islam, and one had decided to stay back. So perhaps he was leaving now with the shirt, and then when as he left, Yaqub al-Islam made this statement that I do indeed send the presence of Yuwsuf. And then the others said, they said, "By Allah, truly thou art in thine old wandering illusion." Then when the bearer of the good news came, he cast the shirt over his face, and he forthwith regained clear sight. He said, "Did I not say to you, I know from Allah that which you know not?" They said, "O our father, ask for us forgiveness for our sins, for we are truly at fault." He said, "Soon will I ask my Lord for forgiveness for you, for he is indeed of forgiving, most merciful." Then when they entered the presence of Joseph, he provided a home for his parents with himself, and said, "Enter Egypt all in safety, if it please Allah." And he raised his parents high on the throne, and they fell down in prostration, all before him. He said, "O my father, this is the fulfillment of a vision of old. Allah hath made it come true. He was indeed good to me when he took me out of prison and brought you all here out of the desert, even after Satan had sown enmity between me and my brothers. Verily, my Lord is gracious to whom he wills, for verily he is full of knowledge and wisdom." So you remember the 11 brothers, the sun and the moon. The sun refers to Yaqub alayhi salam, the moon refers uh, Yaqub alayhi salam's wife, and the 11 stars refer to his 11 brothers. This was a vision, and we have something to add over here before we actually close this chapter and we read out the last few verses. This is now a question may be raised that they are doing sajda to Yusuf alayhi salam. Now there are two answers, both of which are applicable over here. That uh, this is comparable in a way to the sajda, the instruction of sajda to to Iblis, to the angels, to all the angels, and Iblis was amongst them, though he was a jinn, and the instruction was for all that you do sajda to Adam, and all of them did. Iblis did not. So this sajda is not a sajda of worship. This prostration is not a prostration of worship, but this prostration is a prostration of respect. So this prostration is a prostration of respect. So point number one. So sajda is prohibited in the Sharia, in the last Sharia of the Quran. In Islam, not in Islam, because everything is Islam from the time of Adam alayhi salam. All of them are Muslims. All of the prophets are Muslims basically. All of those who follow the prophets are Muslims basically. So sajda has been prohibited in the last Sharia, the Sharia of the Quran. After the Prophet ﷺ, sajda totally for worship, for respect, or for otherwise. In any case, except for Allah, sajda cannot be done. This is the Sharia of the Quran, the Sharia of the Prophet ﷺ. So in this ummah, the sajda has been prohibited except for Allah. So the concept of sajda for worship for Allah is the only one that remains. The sajda for respect is no more applicable in this Sharia. It's prohibited basically. But in the previous Sharia, there were two types of sajda: sajda for worship, which is for Allah alone, and sajda for respect. And the sajda which the angels did and the Satan, Iblis, did not do was not meant to be a sajda of worship. It was meant to be a sajda of respect, and it was basically a fulfillment of the command which the Lord was giving them. The Lord is telling you, do sajda, so you should do sajda. If your Lord tells you, don't disobey your Lord. If Allah tells you to do something, you do it. So this was the sajda of respect. So this is one of the interpretations which is correct. In fact, both the interpretations are correct. And in fact, I have explained both the interpretations. The first is this was the sajda of respect, not of worship, ibadah. The second is sajda in this Sharia has been prohibited except for Allah, but in the previous Sharia it was allowed. Sajda of respect was allowed. So both the points they interrelated basically, and I've tried to explain to the best of my ability about this apparent anomaly that you may think that in the Hadith literature is completely filled with evidence to the effect that prostration besides anyone, sajda before anyone except Allah is absolutely prohibited. So this is how we reconcile, and this is both, there are two interpretations and both the interpretations are correct and they hold good simultaneously. And how they hold good simultaneously, how they're valid at the same time, I have explained to you. So just to repeat, so that's easy for you. So this was a prostration of respect, not a prostration of ibadah. And secondly, in the previous Sharia, the prostration of worship and the prostration of respect both were allowed, but in this Sharia the prostration of respect has been prohibited, and only the prostration of worship, and that for Allah alone, is applicable. Even in the previous Sharia, the only prostration of worship was always the prostration before Allah, no one else. So let's proceed with the last few verses. O my Lord, thou hast indeed bestowed on me some power and taught me something of the interpretation of dreams. O thou creator of the heavens and the earth, the samawat and the earth, thou art my protector in this world and in the hereafter. Take thou my soul at death as one submitting to thy will as a Muslim, and unite me with the righteous. Such is one of the stories of what happened unseen, which we revealed by inspiration unto thee, nor was thou present with them when they concerted their plans together in the process of weaving the plots. Yet no faith will be the greater part of mankind have, however ardently thou dost desire it. No faith will the greater part of mankind have, however ardently thou dost desire it. And no reward dost thou ask of them for this. It is no less than a message for all creatures. And how many signs in the heavens and the earth do they pass by, yet they turn their faces away from them, and most of them believe not in Allah, without associating others as partners with Him. Do they then feel secure from the coming against them of the covering veil of the wrath of Allah, or of the coming against them of the final hour, or all of a sudden, while they perceive not? Say thou, this is my way. I do invite unto Allah with a certain knowledge, and I and whoever follows me. Glory to Allah, and never will I join gods with Allah. Nor did we send before thee as messengers any but men, whom we did inspire, men from the peoples of the towns. Do they not travel through the earth and see what was the end of those before them? But the home of the hereafter is best. For those who do right, will ye not then understand? Respite will be granted until when the messengers give up hope of their people and come to think that they were treated as liars. There reaches them our help, and those whom we will are delivered into safety, but never will be warded off our punishment from those who are in sin. There is in their stories instruction for men endued with understanding. It is not a tale invented, but a confirmation of what went before it, a detailed exposition of all things, and a guide and a mercy to any such as believe. So this is the end of Surah Yuwsuf, and the last verse is actually applicable to this story as well as to the other stories in the Quran. It's both generic and specific in applicability. There is in their stories. So in all the stories, this is the general meaning, and in the specific story, this is the specific meaning. There is in the stories, I mean, this message itself is applicable for all stories. So look at the way, the remarkable fashion in which the story ends. This chapter ends, the surah ends. There is in the stories instruction for men. For whom? Endued with understanding. It is not a tale invented, but a confirmation of what went before it. A detailed exposition of all things and a guide and a mercy to any such as believe. So this is the story of the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. This is the chapter, the surah Yusuf, and this is all that we had to say about this surah. In the next session, we'll continue with chapter number 13, Surah Rad. That's for the next session. So with this, we end this session with for Surah Yusuf.